Today's video is sponsored by Ren. I know I've never talked about it on the channel before, but I love F is for Family, and with the 5th and final season now on Netflix, I can confidently say that they truly stuck the landing and delivered an incredible finale for the series. The final season not only delivers great storytelling, but it wraps up every character's story in a satisfying and heartfelt package. If it isn't clear yet, there will be major spoilers in this video for the entire run of F is for Family, including season 5. So let's jump back to the 70s and take a look at how the story of the Murphy family came to a close. A lot has changed since the 70s. These days we know a lot more about how climate change can and will affect our planet, which is why I'm really excited to talk about today's sponsor, Ren. The more we learn about the climate crisis, the more overwhelming it can seem, but rather than just sit and stress about it, Ren is actually getting to work. They know that nobody can end the climate crisis on their own, but if we work together, we can make a difference. Ren is continuously searching for new technologies to help offset carbon footprints. They've recently started utilizing a biochar project in California, where I live, that helps reduce forest fires and permanently stores carbon at the same time. And that's just one example. They're also creating tools to help you aid in the fight against climate change yourself. Using their website, you can calculate your own carbon footprint to see what kind of impact you're leaving on the environment. Now, nobody can reduce their carbon footprint to zero, but Ren provides ways to help offset it. By setting up monthly contributions, you will receive regular updates to see exactly how your money is going to use, whether it's trees being planted, protection for the rainforest, and specifics on some of their other projects and technologies. It will take a lot to end the climate crisis, but you can help today by learning more at ren.co. I've partnered with Ren to plant 10 extra trees for the first 100 people who sign up using my referral link, so click the link in the description and we can help build a better future. Now, before we jump into season 5, I'm going to talk a bit about the first 4 seasons, since this is a show I've never talked about here. And if you end up liking what I have to say, I'm actually already outlining some much more detailed and in-depth character analysis videos for almost every Murphy family member, so stay tuned for those. But if I'm being honest, I didn't always love F is for Family. Season 1 only has 6 episodes, so it was a quick binge back in 2015, and I wasn't entirely sure what messages the show was trying to convey. The show had an interesting cast of family members. You've got the angry dad, Frank, the hardworking but undervalued housewife, Sue, the fuck-up oldest son, Kevin, the sissy younger brother, Bill, and the overlooked youngest child, Maureen. But on first glance, the protagonist, Frank Murphy, played by series co-creator Bill Burr, was so pointedly unlikable. It was clear that his rage was one of the foundational pillars of the series, but it wasn't clear why watching a character be a raging, abusive dad was going to be an entertaining family TV series. But by the end of season 1, there was one inarguable fact that I knew about the show, and that is that F is for Family has heart. Genuine heart. It also wasn't going to be just a typical feel-good series, because the season finale delivered your usual feel-good finale moments, but then subverted expectations at the last second. After 6 episodes of fractured relationships and miscommunications, there's a scene where the entire family overcomes their differences and shows up for each other, fending off young Bill's bully, Jimmy Fitzsimmons, and his father. It's not an overall situation that the show is taking pride in, but it is taking pride in the camaraderie and loyalty between family members that's at the forefront of this conflict resolution.
I got the best family in this whole goddamn town!
On top of this, Frank actually solves his workplace conflict for the entire season by himself. He manages to act as a middleman between the ownership of Mohican Airways and the workers who are threatening to strike. He's able to facilitate a deal that actually helps the workers and prevents the airline from going under, saving everyone's jobs. But the subversion comes after this. In doing so, he insults the owner of the airline and is fired, just in time for Christmas. The final scene of season 1 made me really think hard about what the series was going to be about. An angry and broken man is probably the best way to describe Frank Murphy, but this final sequence showcases this in such a palpable way. Frank just saved the company he worked for his entire life from complete ruin, and instead of being rewarded for it, he's punished. And standing outside his house before he faces his family as a failure, he's reminded through a conversation with his neighbor Vic that having that family to go back to is a huge blessing.
Nah, man, she'll be all right. She loves you. Your kids love you. You'll be okay. You guys are solid.
The series lived up to its title with its initial finale. It's a series about family, and the ways that family can not only break you, but also the ways that it can pick up the pieces. I remember going into this episode not knowing what to think about the series, and coming out so impressed with how they had managed to make me feel so warm, even through its major downer ending with Frank's firing. And I'm so glad it did, because season 2 went to such great lengths to clarify exactly what the show was going to be about. The way season 1 sort of entrenched itself in the societal norms of the 1970s, season 2 really started to upend those norms by challenging the characters' deep-seated beliefs about them. Season 2 is very much about Frank Murphy reckoning with his own faulty belief system. It's made clear that he's a person who believes that if a man cannot provide for his family, he's more or less worthless.
I'm not working. That means I'm not providing. That means I'm not a man.
But he's also so caught up in his own ego about being able to provide that he isn't even able to sign up for unemployment to actually keep his family afloat while he searches for work. On top of this, when Sue is given some big work opportunities to help provide for the family, rather than support and encourage her, Frank takes this as an indictment of his own ability to provide. Essentially, Frank continuously lets his own ego get in the way of actual progress. In more ways than one, he lets his family down because of his own misconceptions about how the world should work. Slowly over the season, Frank starts to reckon with these insecurities, but it's a rocky road filled with starts and stops. I just love the way season 2 not only portrayed the ups and downs of family life, but also started to dive deep into the psyche of a character whose worldview is starting to be left behind. Season 2 ends with one of my favorite episodes of the series, with Frank recognizing how much he has taken his wife for granted, while also getting his old job back at the airline.
I haven't been there for her. The only right decision I ever made was marrying that woman. I spent the last 2 months throwing it all away.
It's a feel-good finale and could have definitely worked as a series ender if the show hadn't continued. But the show did continue with season 3, which took some really big swings and expanded the cast in big ways. I think expanding the gallery of characters was a smart move for F is for Family, but it also definitely had some growing pains. While all of the Murphys' neighbors had been featured in smaller background cameo appearances in seasons 1 and 2, season 3 very suddenly gave all of these characters more prominent speaking roles. A good and well-intentioned decision that maybe felt a little jarring since they were mostly introduced in a single episode. Season 3 reveals that Sue is unexpectedly pregnant again, which brings a new set of challenges. It also further dives into Frank's psyche as a new neighbor named Chet moves in, played by Vince Vaughn. I have mixed feelings about the Chet arc. I do think it explored a lot of really interesting concepts, but it also was a little more painful to watch. Chet basically pulled his wife Win-Win out of Vietnam while he was fighting there and treats her more like a servant than a partner.
You don't mind, do you, sweetheart?
No mind.
The core conflict with Chet moving into the neighborhood is really interesting. Sue very quickly sees through his charade and tries to get through to Frank about Chet's behavior, but Frank won't listen. The thing is that Chet is a character who completely reaffirms Frank's worldview, even though it's been challenged and shifted in the previous seasons. He finds comfort in the successful Air Force pilot, which just so happens to be the thing Frank wanted to be before Sue got pregnant. He looks up to Chet in a way that completely blinds him to the very real issues that Sue is pointing out. And while I think this is a really interesting challenge for Frank to face in season 3, it feels a bit like a detour. An interesting detour for sure, but it was kind of a bummer to see Frank's progress get derailed. Though I suppose that's life, right? Nothing is a straight path. The arc also concludes with Win-Win literally poisoning Chet to death and being sent to prison for it, which is a wild twist, certainly one of the most surprising in the series. And while the bulk of the season is taken up by the Chet storyline, it basically ends at episode 8, with a little epilogue in episode 9. The actual season finale is another family-focused story about the Murphys tracking down Bill after he nearly runs away from home. The show really knows how to end a season well. Every single season finale is satisfying and heartfelt, but this one felt so disconnected from the main season 3 storyline between Frank and Chet. Overall, I still love the stories and challenges the Murphys are presented with in season 3, but I think seasons 2, 4, and 5 all sit above it in cohesion for me. Which brings us to season 4, which is truly a great season. The entire series we're given little details here and there about Frank's bad relationship with his father, basically hinting that the abuse Frank faced growing up is what molded him into the rage-filled, broken man that continually disappoints his own family. And season 4 confronts this head-on by bringing in Frank's father, Big Bill Murphy. Big Bill is such an interesting character. They did a great job showcasing a father who seems to be trying to turn over a new leaf, but is still unwilling or unable to admit the ways he has failed. Meanwhile, Frank is unwilling or unable to accept that his father might have changed for the better. A lot of this conflict revolves around an incident when Frank was a child in a school play, where his father heckled and embarrassed him in front of the entire audience.
Take 23!
Frank has held on to this pain for years, and even as he and his father start to repair their relationship, Frank presses him for closure about what Bill did to him. Ironically, this conflict comes to a head at Marine's school play, and Frank embarrasses and ashames his entire family, becoming the exact thing that his father was for him.
Right here! I'll give you the first shot, you little fucking sissy!
Frank!
It's truly one of the lowest moments of the series, and it's handled really well. The season ends once again with a family-centric finale, as Frank has to rush home in time for Sue to give birth to their 4th child. Frank makes up with his family and his father, but in the most gut-wrenching finale of the show, Big Bill collapses as Frank introduces him to their new daughter. And that brings us to season 5, which, as I mentioned earlier, is just an incredible final season for the series. It introduces plenty of new stories and conflicts, but all in aid of the journeys that each character has gone on through the series. Season 5 immediately deals with the aftermath of Big Bill's death, which has a pretty major effect on the entire family. Let's start with Sue. After Frank's father dies, Sue starts to think about mortality and the things left unsaid, which leads her to try and repair her own family's fractured relationship. We learn that on her wedding day, after her father discovered she's pregnant, Sue threw her own brother under the bus, revealing to her dad that he's gay, which destroyed their family.
I can't imagine a bigger disappointment in my life.
Oh yeah? Well, Louis is a fruitcake!
Her father and brother hadn't spoken since. Sue sets off to try and bring them back together, but to make it happen, she lies to her brother that her father is dying. And though her ruse falls apart, she still repairs her relationship with her brother, and even gets one great Thanksgiving evening with her entire family. Sue also discovers that, now 4 kids deep, a lot of the ins and outs of early parenting are completely second nature to her. Throughout the series, we see how many regrets Sue has over her past and career failures. In season 2, her ingenious invention is stolen by the company she works for, and she's given 0 credit, and she laments that she wasn't able to finish college after getting pregnant with Kevin. But while her life and goals were derailed by motherhood in a time where being a stay-at-home mom is 100% expected, Sue was able to bolster skills that are actually incredibly useful.
If you want them to calm down, let's bring them over here on the floor.
Oh! She knows her shit?
They set up Sue to potentially have a career helping young parents learn the ins and outs of caring for their babies. It's not necessarily a feel-great story about Sue going back and accomplishing her initial goals, but it's about a strong and resilient woman who made the best out of a difficult situation. Okay, real quick, I want to talk about Vic's baby. I'm gonna throw a little conspiracy theory out there. Vic's girlfriend Karen gives birth to this baby at the end of season 4, and claims it has to be Vic's because they never used condoms. However, we know that Smokey had been poking holes in a ton of condoms that circulated around town. Right around the same exact time that Frank and Sue conceived their new daughter, the end of season 2, Kevin slept with Karen.
14.5? Oh my god, I thought you were just short!
You know where I'm going with this. Look at this baby. It doesn't have the patented Murphy nose that the rest of the family has, but it does have very similar eyes to Kevin and to newborn baby Megan Murphy. Plus, there's this little piece of evidence.
Look at that connection.
These babies have some kind of connection. I really think this might have been the intention here. This kid could actually be Kevin's. But anyways, let's move on to Maureen. I will say Maureen's story continues to be about getting overlooked. And I think that it's possible she gets overlooked as a character a bit in season 5 as well. There are some great sequences and scenes about her trying to cope with no longer being the youngest child and having this new baby overshadowing her, and I do think they did a good job with some of these scenes.
And I just thought if I could talk to my grandpa's ghost, my daddy would be happy and I wouldn't have to be co-princess anymore.
But I do wish that her arc was a little more complete. There's some nice thought put into her story, but not as much follow-through as I'd like.
You gotta have faith that things are gonna be okay, right?
But Bill, on the other hand, has a really great arc that caps off his entire journey in a really satisfying way. I plan on doing a full detailed breakdown of Bill's arc, so stay tuned for that, but I'll go over the broad strokes here to illustrate just how well season 5 handled this story. Bill is a character who is constantly beat down and picked on throughout the show. In seasons 1 and 2, he's constantly bullied by Jimmy Fitzsimmons. In season 3, his girlfriend Bridget is basically abusive to him, and all the while his father coddles him in a way that makes it clear to Bill that Frank thinks he's a total wuss. In season 4 and 5, we basically see Bill overcompensate to vent for his pent-up aggression. First, he takes it out on the ice as he plays hockey, just straight up beating down on his opponents. Then in season 5, that pent-up aggression gets him in trouble with the police, who then put him in a junior officer program. Bill basically follows around a couple cops and uses his new authority to further vent that same aggression.
Officer Glenny! This guy just shoved a bag of weed down his jeans!
But when Bill witnesses the police officers he's following shake down his father's friend Rosie, who is literally a city alderman, he realizes that they're basically bullies themselves. The very thing that conditioned him to change into this aggressive person. He became what he hated. And so he rejects it. He tosses his police hat in the garbage and he doesn't go back. It was such a thoughtful way to end his story, one of my favorite aspects of season 5. Season 5 also shows Kevin deal with some major aspects of relationships that he isn't quite ready for. After things are seemingly going well with his girlfriend Alice, Kevin starts to get really clingy, possibly a subconscious side effect of losing somebody in his family. This is a major turnoff to Alice, and he ends up doubling and tripling down in a truly creepy manner. It's kind of brutal. In one of my favorite scenes in the entire season, Frank and Kevin open up to each other. Frank tells Kevin about his first love, and Kevin actually gleans some great advice from the conversation.
So I should stop chasing Alice around and play it cool, and if we're meant to be, it'll be.
And Kevin, following through on this advice, ends up winning Alice back over. It was so gratifying to see Frank and Kevin connect after 4 seasons of conflict, which brings us to Frank, who goes through a lot in the 8 episodes of season 5. It does a great job wrapping up his own issues stemming from his father, especially after his death. On his deathbed, Big Bill says Box 16, which sends Frank on a wild goose chase looking for closure over what happened. He was so close to having a good relationship with his father, and now he's trying to find it retroactively through this scavenger hunt. This leads him to discover a huge box of tapes that his father recorded, and he obsesses over these, searching for the meaning that he wants his father to give his life. He thinks he's discovered this meaning when Big Bill says that he found happiness going back to work, and then Frank fixates on maintaining his job and getting his Christmas bonus. But in the end, Frank discovers that his father actually meant Box 16.
Backs? No, it's back. Johann Sebastian Bach.
It's a devastating but necessary discovery for Frank, who realizes that he can't find meaning in life through his father's experiences. He has to do it himself. And the one thing that has continually brought him meaning throughout the series is his family.
Sue, I'm so sorry. You were right. You're always right.
The series is basically bookended with 2 scenes. The literal first scene in the entire show is the Murphy family sitting down for dinner when the phone rings, sending Frank into a rage.
Oh, let me tell you something, you goddamn son of a bitch. I don't need a goddamn engraved family Bible.
This is a repeated source of rage for Frank that we see throughout the series. Now here, in the literal final scene of the show, the phone rings at dinner, and instead of fly off the handle, Frank calmly hangs up and leaves the phone off the hook so that he can truly enjoy his time with his family. A changed man.
What if they're calling from work? It might be important.
Nah, this is important.
F is for Family truly lives up to its name. It's a show about family. It's a show about recognizing and understanding that we're all dealt a deck of weird, fucked up cards, and the only thing we can do is try to make the best of it and form a winning hand. It's a show about trying to mess your kids up a little less than your parents messed you up. It's a show about changing for the better and recognizing what's important in your life. Look, honestly, I've only just scratched the surface with this show, its characters, and they're incredibly well written and nuanced arcs. Like I mentioned before, I'm planning on doing some really in-depth character analysis, especially for Frank, Bill, and Sue, so let me know if that's something you're interested in seeing, because I'm really excited to dive into the arcs more thoroughly. But I also want to hear what you thought about Season 5 and F is for Family in general. Did you think it stuck the landing like I did? Did you have any issues with it? Let me know below in the comments, and of course, stay tuned for more. Peace.
Johnny!
To challenge!